getting back to the address and fireside chat, the new age marketing playbook, humans, AI and agents working together, for which I would request Mr. Dhiraj Gupta, Chief Technology Officer and co-founder mFilterIt, to please come on stage. Give him a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a presentation. Up to you.
Thank you so much. We are living in a world where I think since the morning, every presentation you have heard would have talked about AI, and you were like, oh my God, another conversation on AI. Well, this is going to be a little different, maybe not that different, but I think it's something which is important. We at mFilterIt have spent a lot of time working on traffic measurement, invalid traffic, brand safety, that's what we are known. But one question clients kept asking us is, how is it improving the efficiency of my campaigns? Clients don't care about invalid traffic or wastages or brand safety. They care about campaign efficiency, right? How do I get my campaigns to be more efficient, reach the audience I want to reach, ensure it is done at a lower cost, and I get the value outputs which the campaign investment deserves. So the question then is not just about ensuring whether the campaign is clean or not, but also ensuring if it is optimized, it is planned well, it is productive, it is ROI positive. And then we realized a problem. The problem was that currently, if any one of you marketers had an idea, hey, with all this conclave conversation, let me try this out, and you think of a brief, well, the sad news is by the time you try and stitch this together, it will take a long time for you to go live with your campaign, because all these activities from brief to planning to campaign setups, execution, optimizing, reporting, governance is all being done manually on Excels, on emails. We talk about the AI world, we talk about how AI will change everything. But guess what? The plumbing of how campaigns are planned, designed, executed and optimized is being done manually. And it's being done manually since ages. The end result is that right now, as I said, if you come out with an idea at this stage that let me do something, you make a brief, you send to the agency will come back after 7 days. They'll say, no, let's do this. Then you send it back to the agency will come back after another 7 days with a plan. Then maybe a couple of iterations, then your plan gets approved. Then you go to finance and say, okay, generate the PO, get an estimate, get a creative, another 7-8 days. Guess what? It will be 30 days practically before your campaign will even see the light of the day. And this is what all of us as marketers, as agencies, as publishers are dealing with every day, every time, because campaigns take a long time to plan, to create, to deploy. And the world is moving much faster. By the time you've planned something and by the time it sees the light of the day, maybe the requirements have changed. The need has changed. If you are planning something for Independence Day and you realize that, okay, I need to do something for the Independence Day which is coming up soon enough, well, I don't think you have enough time now, because if you want to start planning today, it's probably not going to see the light of the day by that time. Now the question is, can AI reduce this? Can AI convert 30 days to maybe 5 days? Can AI help in optimizing all these wasteful, unproductive activities, give much better outputs, much better execution to resolve the plumbing of how campaigns are created, planned, designed and executed with the mundane tasks being done by agents rather than being done by humans? And just wanted to also talk about optimization. I don't know how many of you have realized this, but this is just a simple YouTube campaign which we ran, and we just looked at hourly bid rates. For a single campaign with the same TG, creative, affinity, demographics, everything same, every hour of the day has a different CPM. And the fluctuations in the CPM swing almost 30–40%. So if you're buying during, for example, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. this time of the day, you're going to get much cheaper CPMs to reach out to the same audience. But during other hours of the day, you might end up paying 30% more. Now what does that mean? That means that ideally if you keep optimizing your bids and adjusting your bids dynamically for this, you can actually buy your campaign cheaper on YouTube with the same target, the same demographic, the same audience. This is called micro bidding. But guess what? If a human is going to do this, either you're going to get him to wake up 24/7 and keep doing this, and if your agency is going to do this, it's probably not going to happen every some hours. It's going to happen once in a week. And the end result is you get CPMs which are barely there. But if you could optimize this continuously every few hours, you can actually write this and get in 20–30% lower CPMs on your same YouTube campaign which you're executing right now, just taking advantage of this flow. Try this out. Just look at an hourly bid rate in your DV360 for a YouTube campaign and you'll be surprised at this curve, right? And which is where then we thought that let's try and look at mPulse. Can I have the video please? And let's just look at
every campaign starts with an objective, but turning that objective into real media performance is never simple. The brief is in an email. The plan is in a spreadsheet. Campaign setup happens across platforms. Optimization sits in separate dashboards which doesn't understand the original plan. And reporting often comes too late to guide the next move. The result? Too many handoffs, too much manual follow-up, and too little visibility across the full campaign journey. Introducing mPulse by mFilterIt. One pulse, one agentic OS for your entire campaign from start to finish. Connected, integrated, and smart. Every platform, every step, complete visibility, complete governance. mPulse is an agentic media operating layer designed to bring campaign planning, setup, optimization, reporting, and intelligence into one connected experience. A brief agent helps structure campaign objectives, budgets, audiences, timelines, and KPIs, and brings out research. A planning agent helps turn approved inputs into draft media plans for planner review. Pulls audiences and channels from industry-wide platforms like GWI, Comscore, SimilarWeb. A setup agent helps make campaign creation faster and more consistent through templates, validations, and platform-ready workflows. An optimization agent monitors live campaign signals, surfaces issues, and recommends actions. And a reporting and insights agent connects performance, planned versus delivered views, logs, and campaign intelligence, creating a 360 feedback loop which continuously ensures campaigns execute efficiently so teams do not have to keep chasing fragmented data across fragmented tools. They get one clear operating pulse across the campaign lifecycle. Human judgment stays in control. Agent supports where it adds speed, and every decision becomes more connected, more visible, and more accountable. mPulse by mFilterIt. Agentic media operations for modern marketing teams. One pulse, every platform, complete visibility. See how mPulse connects your campaign lifecycle. Schedule a walkthrough today.
So we've been working on this for the last 6–8 months under stealth mode. We just launched it last month. And this is like an operating system which helps you in managing your entire workflow from an ideation at a brief level to actual campaign delivery, optimization, reporting, and governance. We are live with tools, platforms like Google, Meta, DV360, OTTs, Spotify's, e-commerce, etc., and all of them planned, created, optimized through agents with human overview, and that's it. I'm happy to report that we've been able to roll this out across 4 different large FMCG clients, and we've seen about 30% reduction in CPM rates on planner rates and about 20% in pure A/B tests where unmanaged YouTube optimized line items versus mPulse optimized line items had 20% differentials in CPMs while meeting down the funnel benchmarks of VTRs, CTRs, etc. I'm going to cover that up. Different agents, the brief agents, planning agents, campaign creation, optimization, budget management, governance, insights. Each of these agents work independently. You can choose one agent and not take the other, or let the pulse go through each of these agents one after the other. Small things which make a chaos in the campaign. How many times you were about to launch the campaign and suddenly you realize that the CTA is longer than the length allowed, or the line item name is longer than what you wanted. The DCM tags are lying there, someone has to go and pull out the tags from there. Someone has to go and create the taxonomy. Someone has to go and set up affinity audiences, and there are errors in that. All of these, the agent takes care of automatically, ensures it pulls tags from DCM automatically, pulls in tags from other third-party measurement platforms, creates the campaign, does a QC, validates it, and you just have to turn in the button to make it live. Something which otherwise takes maybe 3, 4, 5 days just in creating the campaign now happens in about 30 minutes. This is obviously not something which I say in haste. We've run this over hundreds of campaigns now and successfully run this out. The good part is that each of these sequence creates a feedback loop. The data which comes in from the brief, the planning, the optimization goes back into immediately your next campaigns. Creatives which did not perform in your campaign immediately feedback to the brief agent to make sure that your next campaign takes care of all of these without this becoming a loop which you are inefficient on. Maruti actually did an innovation on this. We won this first prize. They pushed us to create this campaign. We are going to go live with them in the next week. Maruti campaigns are now going to run this out end to end. We won the first prize in this hackathon, and that's how this whole thing came up in the first place. A quick case study. This is an FMCG client who ran an A/B test, line items which were managed by us versus line items which were managed by YouTube directly. 9.21% lower CPV rates compared to the YouTube self-optimized campaign. 10% higher VTRs, 1% higher CTRs. So secondary objectives met, reach and frequency met, and then you got about 10% lower CPVs in your campaign across line items which YouTube was itself managing. And that's money in the pocket. 4 line items, all 4 line items actually saw reductions and savings. The benchmark itself changed for the client. What they were planning for now is 10% lower than what they used to plan. Another case on the setup side, the plan ingestion, validation, naming, DCM, QC, something which took 3 days, 4 days earlier from a manual approach, now getting done in 30 minutes. We recently had the Mother's Day campaign. Friday night, the 10 o'clock the campaign came in, 10:30 the campaign was live, Mother's Day was on Sunday, and the campaign executed. If at Friday night 10 o'clock the Mother's Day campaign came through a manual flow, probably it would not have seen the light of the day by the time Mother's Day happened. So those are the efficiencies now which are coming in, allowing you to do things like micro campaign planning. Now you can, if you can roll out a campaign in 3 days, you can actually plan a campaign for maybe just 1 week. Create the campaign, go live to deal with a micro problem rather than making just large campaigns which run for weeks. Last one, again, a CPM optimized campaign, 14% lower CPMs, 32% higher CTRs at the frequency which required. So agentic AI is something which is now here for us. Marketing efforts which right now go into Excel sheets and emails can be better spent. And with that, I actually invite Tushar Vyas, Chief Strategy Officer for WPP India, and also the President, and he just recently exited. Tushar, please come on stage. Let's have a conversation on agentic AI. Thank you, please.
Please give him a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
So, Tushar, you spent, I think, 25 years in the agency. You've seen a lot of AI disruption happening in the last few years. You've seen how AI is changing how agencies are operating, clients are operating. In your opinion, where do you think this is going? And what do you think is the path forward for clients and agencies in this new world and era?
Yeah. So first of all, the industry which we operate is in a forefront of our technology. It's like a tip of a spear kind of thing. So this is the first industry to get impacted. And we have seen a few generations, right? Every 10 years there's a massive change happens. So starting from the television, then the dimension of television came, then digital came, mobile came, and now the AI piece. So it's tuned to adapt as a structurally in terms of when technology change, when consumer change, we need to sort of evolve with that. So I'm sure directionally it sort of set a pace. Sometime consumer changes faster than the industry or the rest of the ecosystem catches up fast. But that's a part of a process of evolution, I would say. If I were to deconstruct advertising in a sort of very, very layman term, it's a broadly three things, right? So creation of message, distribution of message, and what you just mentioned is like a workflow or a plumbing required to, manage the ecosystem, right? And that's where role of agency and role of, the industry player like you comes into play. So when it comes to distribution of message, I think that's where the most of the disruption started, right? In terms of Google coming in, Meta coming in. So how do we make the distribution efficient to the consumer? And that's where the entire journey of personalization started in terms of reaching at a right moment, right consumer. I think the next game is a sort of message piece, and that's where the entire Gen AI is playing a role in terms of how to think of a content more like a supply chain, right? How to make the content more relevant from the platform perspective. So same content which goes into Amazon is a same message which goes into Amazon is a different versus what goes into Meta, what goes into Google, right? Because it has to be very, very contextual to platform. And that's where Gen AI is playing a role, and I think some amount of maturity came in terms of how to do platform-specific supply chain kind of a thinking in terms of creation. I think the next piece is the entire plumbing. So how do we bring all the pieces together and make it efficient? And there is, of course, there's a two dimension, right? In terms of one is adopting the 2 days process, and the second part is also reimagining the process in an AI era and how the entire environment works. So that's where I think the maximum amount of work is required. So once all three start moving in a in a sort of some kind of a sync, and that's where I think the real magic will start coming. It's again, from an AI perspective, relatively early days, everybody is learning, and I'm sure there is a sort of journey to be covered.
No, absolutely. That's a nice way to represent. I think a lot of the audience would have covered conversational AI, the previous panel was on it, or Gen AI, which was about creatives and the messaging and the personalization. But I think that point of yours, that the workflow and the plumbing of how things flow through to create magic, I think that is where the need of the hour is also to bring efficiency on, because if that takes 30 days to plan, right, then the whole magic kind of disappears. I also wanted to ask you on a question related to what do you think is the agency's involvement in changes like these, right? I'm sure a lot of these will result in a way by which agencies and clients' workflows will change, right? And I think you mentioned also that this will probably require a reimagining of how the current work is done. With all your experience in the agencies, what is your thought on how agencies should deal with this, all this change?
I guess there is definitely a sort of realization and recognition that this is like a generational change, right? This is a change which is going to make a significant impact to industry. So look at all the networks, they have been sort of working on this, upgrading their tech stack. They are developing their own sort of AI. Each one has got their own way of working it. Some of them are calling it operating system. Some of them are calling the agentic system. But there is an upgrade which is happening. What I see directionally is everybody is going more in terms of augmentation. So I have a process, manpower, I'm going to augment that with AI and a sort of created layer. Also, there is some amount of a customization also involved, right? Because each of the client and each of the category behaves in a very different way. And I just have to look at like a broader segment. Digital first client versus an enterprise client will behave very differently, right? Because digital first client might have a builder mindset when it comes to use of technology. Enterprise, client will have a different way of looking at that, right? So they may look at the ecosystem, or they may look at the customer first kind of a thinking. So I think the orientation and segmentation will be very, very different. So again, the way the agency build their solution for a segment will vary. And the component they adopt for a also client may also vary. So there will be a significant amount of co-creation also required with agency, with industry players like you, and with the client, right? And of course, there are sort of platforms has a role to play, LLM has a role to play. So all these are going to be integral part of our ecosystem. So it will be some part will be bespoke, some part will be standardized process, which will evolve once we go through the journey.
No, I agree. The way I look at it though is that advertisers have two options. One is they could lease the model, lease the AI and rent it by basically the model and the data is sitting with the agency and the client is renting that for bringing efficiency, optimization for their campaigns. Or they can own that data and they can own that model, invest in it, and build it in-house. I think both have the role, as you said, some clients would have a vendor mentality and would want to own the model and the data. I think what I can see is, and just as a side note, when we started mPulse, the first month we got about 5-7% efficiencies, but by the time we crossed the second month and we got multiple more campaigns, the efficiencies went up to 15-18%, and now it's almost 20-25% range, which means that models will keep getting more and more efficient, at least for the next foreseeable future. And the efficiency gain is on the table. Now, whether that is absorbed, that gain is absorbed by the agency or that is absorbed by the client is something which probably will matter and will differentiate how different clients operate. What's your thought on it?
Yeah, just to build on that, you would sort of, in a way, deconstruct that, right? In terms of where sitting what. So when things are, in a way, getting reimagined, right? So this is a kind of phase we are where there is an opportunity to reimagine things, and it's good to think on a first principle basis, right? So the question to ask is not agency, client, or ecosystem. The question to ask, where is the skill set going to be? Where is the knowledge going to sit? Where is the data and infrastructure tech and infrastructure going to sit, right? So I think those are the fundamental questions. And again, as I said, some of this may vary based on the segment of a client you are looking at, right? Depending on their capability or skill set. I keep going back to like a tech-first enterprise kind of example, but the way they approach to this problem will be very, very different, right? A sort of tech-first kind of client will say, I have an engineering capability, I understand, sort of AI stack which I build, and I'm already using for 20 different things. Marketing is one of the process I'm going to add to that. While, the enterprise customer will have a very, very different view in terms of, they think in terms of maybe, knowledge, how do I harness my knowledge, how do I get best insight. I'm okay if somebody else is running a process for me.
Understood.
So I think those are the kind of decision which will be taken at a company's level. And there will be some amount of a reset. And I'm sure new player will come. Some of the reconfiguration will happen in terms of way of working. But it's good to go to first principle basis and say what I'd like to own, where I'm going to add a value in the entire value chain. Is it a skill? Is it a tech? Is it a knowledge? Or is it a process? Or maybe whatever way you are sort of classifying your businesses, right?
I think I'll touch a different topic now. Within this flow, one of the key things which happens is that now suddenly data is getting democratized, right? Data which was sitting in platforms and had limited access to clients, and clients had to struggle to get that report, and maybe it came after the whole campaign was over. Now data is available at your fingertips. Insights and analytics is available immediately because AI is able to crunch all those data points and bring you a crisp summary. I think this democratization of information between the platform, the agency, and the client suddenly opens up a lot more interesting nuances, because now clients can actually take in between campaign steps, modify strategies, change behavior, maybe change a campaign structure every few days, rather than just letting the campaign run and then at the end of the campaign do a post-campaign audit and analysis. I think this brings that dynamism which we expect from digital I mean, the ability for us to tamper with schedules on a TV or a radio is extremely complicated, right? But in digital, all of this is something which we expect or assume, but it never came in. But I think that's the dynamism which I think as a side business model comes in, because now suddenly all of this is achievable. What's your thought on it?
And yes and no, actually. So, what you just said is very true in terms of one cycle which we are running. But increasingly, this is becoming a two-speed world. So there are a certain part of processes which is moving at that level of agility which you spoke. But when you have to build a brand, there's some component will still have needs a consistency. You need to tell your story again and again, right? So that is not going to change at that space, right? Because the way you position your brand doesn't change. Your value and mission which you're driving through brand doesn't change that fast. So there's going to be a foundation which will be solid and which will remain for a relatively longish period. But the way you execute is going to be much faster, right? So those cycles are shorter. Those cycles have got a flywheel. There's got a feedback loop. But foundation, you need to keep it. And that's where I think the beauty of brand building comes into play, right? There is a still value in discovering new things, right? There's like a serendipity. If it is just optimization, then it will become very, very boring. So you need to keep bringing back that magic of a brand building periodically back. And that will bring that freshness which is required in the marketing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think nothing breaks, nothing changes in terms of the creativity, the art, the consumer insight. I think those plays will still remain human, because finally marketing is an art of talking to humans and convincing them, right?
Yeah.
I think AI can only make it easier and simpler for humans to do that, but finally humans obviously have to bring that artistic expression or the
Yes.
humanity feeling which connects people to a brand.
As a process also, you need to keep zooming and zooming out, right? If you get into too deep into optimization, then it's become a self-fulfilling proposition kind of thing. So that's where you need to zoom out also, look at the larger picture and see what I'm missing out. Is there any new thing? Is the ecosystem evolved? My audience has changed, and then sort of get in, right? So that's a continuous process.
I'll talk about one more thing which I think is extremely important this day and age. We're talking about crores and crores being spent on a campaign. I think the important element is governance. Right now, a lot of times a campaign is planned and given for execution, but what's actually happening to the campaign, and is it following the guardrails and the guidelines which you've set up, are something which is like a post-campaign audit analysis when nothing can be done after that, right? The campaign is gone, the money is gone, you can just cry over spilled milk if anything has happened. One of the things we've baked into Impulse is a governance agent which keeps monitoring the campaign continuously to see if any line item or any ad set is violating the guardrails which the client has set up. I'm sure as an agency that's always been a pressure, right? Transparency, governance, auditability, and making sure that campaigns follow the guardrails which the clients are setting up. And what's your thought on this approach versus what is probably currently being done?
Yeah, I think this is a fairly complex and evolving sort of problem, right? Because again, there's the ecosystem evolves. Some of the newer element you have to keep bringing it, and I'm glad you are bringing some kind of structure to this. And there will be various dimensions of governance, right? So one which you address from fraud, compliance, all this area in which you have been doing it for many years. So that's again a solid foundation. But there'll be also guardrail which will come from a sort of brand, what brand stands for, right? What's my tonality? How am I going to represent what environment I represent my brand? I think the panel before just talking about some of the call center agents. How your agent responds is also your brand representation. So what tonality you are using, how you are interacting, how you are answering questions. So it's each interaction is an element which is contributing to the brand. So it's a broader definition we need to look at, not just in terms of compliance, but in terms of representation of brand, in terms of representation of also company values and what to be done and what not to be done. For example, I'm picking up a generic example, but at a beauty company, generating an AI-led human and a running ad might not be acceptable to some of the companies because there is a, ethically it's a sort of not acceptable. Because you are selling something which is real beauty, and if you start creating a sort of content using AI, then it doesn't go well with the value system which you set, right? So and there are many specific examples we can talk about that, but those are the areas which companies are getting more and more conscious and goes through various layers of.
In fact, I'll interrupt. I think you've touched on a very interesting point that organizations have touched AI, using AI on, for example, content, discussion, engagement, interaction with clients, which is the more difficult part where human involvement and emotions and expressions are far more complicated, right? I mean, I'm sure today's conference, most of the conversations would have been on conversational AI or creative generation, Gen AI, etc., where human interaction, expression, humanity, emotions is extremely important and is always challenging for AI. Maybe not in a couple of years, but currently it still is. But the simple part of the plumbing, the back-end activity, which doesn't have emotions, which doesn't have expressions, probably much more simpler for AI to execute, is something which is still broken. I think that actually brings that maybe we've jumped to elements which are more human and maybe probably more dependent on humans, but processes which are still easy to fix and easy to plug with agents or something like just a campaign creation, right? Why there's no emotions there.
Yeah, the answer may vary, again, as I said, depending on client. And in fact, there's too many things happening actually in the ecosystem right now, and I'm sure if you are sitting on a marketer side, you're also equally confused and worried, right, in terms of there are 100 things happening, where to start and how do I simplify the ecosystem. Let me give an example. My son just moved from school to college, and when he moved to college, he said, I would like to do tech upgrade. I said, what tech upgrade means? It can be buying a phone, it can be buying accessories, it can be changing laptop. So this is where the CMO is, right? The ecosystem is changing. AI is coming to ecosystem and upgrade happening everywhere. And somebody need to come and decode that. Where do I start? Which part of the process I need to start? What's my journey look like? What's my maturity look like? So it's a critical, and I'm sure the forum like this and some of the player like you need to do that job. Even the agency ecosystem need to do that job in terms of simplifying, charting out path for the set of clients and guide them in the journey.
No, absolutely. I think the endeavor which we were trying to do, and just remind that what I started my presentation with was how do we bring more efficiency and optimization. And when we got into it, I think it became a path where we saw, okay, all these processes which were supposedly easy to fix by AI, but still being done by humans. I think it's been an exciting 6 months for us with Impulse, and we've got some great case studies and some great outputs over hundreds of campaigns now. And if any one of you want to try that out for your campaigns, please do reach out. With that, I have time for a few questions. Anyone has any questions for Tushar or for me? Yes, please. Can we have the mic there?
Yes. Hello. I have a question to Tushar. So you mentioned about the brand. As a industry leader, how do you calculate the brand value or brands? On which basis as a marketer? I am a founder of Ohm's FinTech account aggregator, so I want to understand that.
Yeah, so there are actually various models exist in terms of brand value calculation. So like Kantar is a research agency, they have got a brand Z, which is a model that helps calculate. WEP, where I used to work, has got a brand asset valuator, BAV, which helps you calculate. So there are few models exist in terms of calculation. which helps calculate financial as well as non-tangible value of a brand. So,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Kushal.
Good to see you again, Tushar. My question for, I think, everyone in the room and also sort of leaders like you is that we're moving in this whole pace of AI getting into our lives as well. Are we using that too much, already too fast? And are we losing that human element of, because human element of creating for good advertising and marketing is getting lost? What are your thoughts? Do you think we'll be able to make fantastic campaigns, or we'll keep doing moment to moment living ROAS campaigns?
Let me try and answer that. I think I covered part of that, but directionally. But I think I completely agree with you. I think the human element in creativity, in design, in concept of the marketing has to remain with humans, because finally marketing is about connecting with humans, not connecting with bots, right? Which means that the emotions which connect people to the brand has to be human-led, and agents can only support in bringing out information and insights, but it has to be a human-led approach. And that's where probably I was indicating that maybe all the Gen AI work which we've done in kind of automating creatives, maybe that was something which we've gone a little too far ahead, and maybe we need to bring back a little bit of humanness and emotions in and expressions in how we are making our creatives, because that is what finally the human sees in the marketing spend. AI which is behind is actually something which should immediately be done, or I think the time has come for it to be done, because that doesn't actually have any dependency on emotions and feelings. It has to do with productivity and efficiency, and just the human spending more time on things which are more important rather than mundane activities like creating a DCM tag or uploading a video on YouTube, right? Those are things which are ideally suited for an agent to carry out, because there are no emotions involved in just uploading a YouTube video, right? So my sense is, I completely agree that there are sections in marketing which have to be human-led and human-dominated. For example, the creative element for sure, or the interactions. The previous one was on conversational AI. If bots are going to keep talking, I'm sure all of us would have experienced. It's great from a cost saving, but it's pathetic from a user experience point of view. And we all want to talk to a human rather than a bot, right? So those are areas where I think maybe we've gone too much into AI, but wherever I think the backbone, the back-end activities are, those are the ones which we should actually just
Just a repeat to the same question. Tushar, earlier this year, I think some of us who were in Cannes, Cindy Rose spoke about the fact of talking clearly, of putting out messaging for the consumers to know which pieces of content are AI and which pieces of content are not AI. What are your thoughts in terms of letting the consumer or the final user know that this is generated through technology and this is not?
So before I go there, let me build on the earlier piece also, right? In terms of my mind, there's a clear demarcation in terms of how we work and how we engage with the consumer, right? So when it comes to how we work, which is related to marketing process, your priorities will be very, very different, right? So automation, optimization, how do I get efficiency? So the lenses in terms of process you are looking will be very, very different. The second piece is how we engage with the consumer. The use of AI is a very different. There you are looking at what? You're looking at insight. What are sort of levers of engagement? How do I, drive sort of journey or make it more relevant in their consumer journey, so there is a better value exchange happening with the brand, right? And some of the work, and I continue to be a big cheerleader of some of the work our team has used to do in a Cadbury's and stuff like that, right? The use of AI will be very different in those kind of situation versus, optimization kind of situation. So I think those are the differentiation you need to make. When you are talking about engaging with consumer, optimization is not the key priority, right? Your insight you are generating and engagement opportunity you are generating is the priority.
Yeah. And just answering your question, by the way, Tushar, you missed that out. But answering your question, I think right now, AI content is still, you can determine that this looks AI, and there's a gut feel that it's hard, it's becoming harder, but there's still a way by which you can say this looks AI. But I'm pretty sure in 6 months' time, maybe that will also go away.
They very clearly said in Cannes that we will make sure we have different categorization when marketers put in their entries to sort of say this is AI enabled and this is human. And that's, of course, the gold standard in terms of marketing, right? So that's what I'm saying, that this is some of your biggest leaders across WPP1, some of the biggest campaigns this year at Cannes as well, and they sort of had those broad categorization. So do you think that's something which we'll see in India soon as well?
Yeah, so there's a couple of layers of those guardrails, right? So one, which will be, agency will drive some of the norms and ecosystem. But some of the companies also have their guardrails in terms of what to do's and don't. And those varies category by category, right? And on top of that, there will be industry body like ASCII and all, which will set certain norms. So I see this as a also tiered sort of problem and a tiered journey kind of thing where multiple players will play the role in setting up a norm.
Well, thank you so much for all the answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, please? Or your time's up.